Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wine World TV, the best wine show anywhere. I'm your host, Mark Fusco. Now, before we get started, make sure you smash that like button and subscribing to the channel. Every like and subscription really helps build the channel. Even better, spread the word to your friends about the best wine show anywhere. So I've got some cool people here. Now, you may not think corks and screwcaps are cool. Corks and screwcaps are cool, but they are cool to me, and that's why we're doing this. I have Susan Owen and Kevin André next to me, and we're going to talk about why corks and screw caps are cool things and all that kind of stuff. And we'll start with, well, Susan, why don't you introduce yourself and the company you work for, your whatever hat you wear, and then Kevin, we can kind of come to you, and then we kind of talk about all your products here.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us join you today. First and foremost, I love the wine industry. So before anything else, that's where my heart is and my passion. So as you said, my name is Susan Owen, and I am the Senior Director of Sales for G3 Enterprises, which means I manage packaging for North America. It's a really great job. I've been with them for about 6 years. And for those of you who don't know, G3 is a privately owned family company. It has been around for multiple decades, and it is a leading supplier to the wine industry for packaging. We lovingly joke that you make the wine, and for G3, there's everything else.
Cool.
So we do everything from DIAM corks to screw caps to capsules. We're a distributor for glass bottles, but it's a pleasure to work in the wine industry, and thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Kevin, let's talk about your side of everything over here.
Yes, well, thank you for the invite again. Really happy to chat about corks today. My name is Kevin André. I am the sales director for DIAM in North America. DIAM is a leading company in technical corks. Above us, we have a group which is Oneo, which is a group based on anything around the winemaking. We have cooperage, we have oak alternatives, and we have corks. And above this group, there is a family. It's also a family-owned group, which is a Remy Martin family. If you drink cognac, there's a very famous family in that industry.
Yeah, I don't drink just wine. I drink everything, but wine is my primary beverage.
That's good.
Cool.
We appreciate your support.
Yeah, absolutely. I do what I can. All right. So G3, like I said, they provide lots of solutions, not just screw cap, but cork and screw cap.
Correct.
Right. What caught my attention was, one, I knew what DIAM was. I know the name, and I know not a lot, but I know enough about them. I was like, I want to interview this guy, but then they're next, but there was the same table. I was like, but screw cap, I love screw cap. So I wanted to get them together or whatever. I want to get them on camera so we can kind of talk about what we have as far as cork and screw cap, what they bring to the wine, and probably like why are we using them? What can they do for us as a closure? And obviously we've used cork for a long time, but screw cap is a relatively newer closure, but I think I told them I love screw cap. I think screw cap should not be demonized. Cork is great. Screw caps are great. We can use whatever we want. So there we go.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Our job at G3 is not to say one is better than the other. Our job is to offer solutions to our customers, which are wineries, and allow them as the wineries and brand owners and owners of their image to their consumer and the experts in their consumer to determine what fits their wine profile best, right? So we will provide a solution. We'll help, do things like create artwork and help their brand have recognition. But that's up to the winery to decide, right? They know what their consumers want. They know best how to protect their wine. They know what sustainability piece is most important to them. And so we like to say, we have tools in our toolbox, and then you're the carpenter and you get to pick, how you want your wine to be closed, because there is room in this market for all options based upon what you're trying to achieve with your wine.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, she's gonna. You can talk about. She's gonna talk about cork and screw cap, but there's probably more. I don't know. You're gonna talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm not gonna tell you what to talk about. But obviously, we have somebody on the cork side that's the expert with cork, and you obviously are gonna be able to chime in and all that. But screw cap is, like I said, relatively new. We won't. I've talked about the history of screw cap. We're not going to go delve into that. But what's been fascinating for me with screw cap over the last 10 to 20 years is the mimicry of what we call OTR, or oxygen transfer rate, that cork does. And you can do this with cork too. But you can specifically dial in what you want and what your goals are as a winery, what you're looking to achieve. If you want a perfect hermetic seal, which causes, some maybe off aromas initially, but they all blow off, you get that reduction. But now we can allow some oxygen to come in so that you don't necessarily get those off aromas when the consumer opens the wine initially, because sometimes that was a little off-putting. But now I know we can kind of do that. So we can kind of mimic cork. So kind of talk about maybe that aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Or anything else.
Absolutely. So first of all, G3 is headquartered in the Central Valley of California, and it's where we actually do our manufacturing. So we're a domestic manufacturer. And like you said, with Screwcaps, one of the challenges initially when they came out is, how do we allow for the proper transfer of oxygen? And the way you do that is not this metal piece on the outside. It's actually, the liner on the inside that is allowing oxygen to transfer from the outside environment through the liner into the wine, just like a cork does. And so at G3, we have our standard 30x60 screw cap, but we have different liner options. So if you're at home and you're opening a bottle, and if you open your screw cap and you flip it upside down, you will see inside, you're not going to see it through the camera, but you will see inside there is a liner. And that liner is what controls the OTR, oxygen transfer rate, to help determine, does it let more oxygen in, less oxygen? We have different liner options. One, that again will have a higher amount of oxygen, one that's a less amount of oxygen, and even a liner that will be better for a sparkling type wine. So it really, again, is all about winery knowing what they need and then giving options and variables to meet those needs. And we can do that with Screwcap. And then the great thing about DIAM is that they too, because it's a technological company based on science, they've been able to come up with ways to control oxygen. And so it's giving our winemakers choices.
Okay. So with the sparkling wine side, I'm just going to assume this is not like necessarily five atmospheres necessarily, or can you do like a champagne level of sparkling in a screw cap, or is it going to be more frizzante or maybe lower atmospheres, like a 2 to 3?
More frizzante with a traditional 30x60.
Okay.
We have another screw cap that we call a short flange, so not the length of the skirt is shorter. So this is 30 millimeters on top, 60 from the skirt. We have what we call a short flange, so a screw cap that doesn't have the same length, that can actually function for true sparkling. But this 30x60 traditional is more for a frizzante style.
Now I think about it, maybe it's just because of my what I've experienced over the years in restaurants and retail, is that on like a true sparkling, like a Prosecco, it's always like the little minis that have the screw cap. So is that mostly what it would be, or do you have full-size bottles that do that?
No, what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, that's primarily our business. On the sparkling side, obviously, for regular screw caps, we have many traditional customers, and again, you have some splits, 187 splits that are in the little screw caps. You have some that are under cork as well, because they're the owner of their brands. They know what experience their consumers want to have. They want to maybe hear the sound of the cork and the pop and the celebration, or they go, no, I just, I want to be able to open it and then reseal it. Who knows? It's up to the winery and their consumers and their brand managers to determine what's best for them.
Cool. So on the DIAM side, so let's kind of talk about DIAM and what differentiates you from, say, other cork companies.
Yes.
Well, first of all, cork. So I'm just gonna make a big old assumption that this is mostly coming from Portugal, or are you getting cork from other sources?
Other sources. You're right. So cork comes from 7 countries.
Okay.
Portugal, being the main country, it's about 50% of the production. Spain is the second biggest. And then you have a little bit in Italy.
Yes.
You have North Africa.
Really? I didn't know
Yes.
about that. Okay.
So Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria.
Okay.
And France, in the south of France, a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay.
We had a bigger industry in the 50s in France, but it's been abandoned. Now we're renewing it, especially with DIAM, being the second biggest cork buyer in the world, the leader of technology called Cork. We buy a lot of cork material. So we're renewing forest, we're replanting, we're helping to give a new dynamism to that industry.
And that's just Southwest France or just
South, like a Limousin. So you have different Corsica.
Okay.
So we're even able to do today appellations, specific cork appellation for wineries in that area that want cork from their region. So it's super cool. But yes, Portugal being the main supplier.
I knew Spain had cork. I knew Italy had cork, but very small amounts. I never knew about France or Northern Africa part. I had no idea. So this is why I do these.
Right? We got to look at the map. And when I was with Kevin, actually in France, I had the pleasure of visiting a cork forest, and we're going up this windy road. We started on the French side. Then we crossed into Spain for just a wee bit, and then the road switched back, and then we were back in France. And so you have to think geographically. I mean, there's just a pretend line border that separates the two.
And cork.
Some mountains and
Kind of.
Cork is an oak tree. So you
Right,
have oak trees all around the world.
True
you
that,
have
right.
oak trees in Texas. You have oak trees in California.
Yeah.
None of those are usable for closure purposes.
So the oak trees that we use for cork, those won't be the same necessarily oak trees we use for barrel, or can they be the same?
No, it's a different cork. So
Different
oak
cork,
tree is a Cecil, white oak in the US.
Okay.
Or cork petrae, which is specifically for barrels. They can grow in North America and obviously also in France, a little bit Italy, Eastern Europe. The cork tree is specific because this is a piece of cork. So you just have the bark, then you have this yellow part we call suberin, and that's the elastic part of the tree. And other oak trees do not have that elastic suberin.
Okay.
And that's why for hundreds of years we've been using cork. Is that elastic property that we need to cork the bottle and seal and protect the wine.
Okay.
That's also why you only have a few regions, because it's all based on the climate, the growing regions, the soil, and everything.
Okay. Now, before we did cork, we had some other enclosures. Can you speak to kind of what we did prior to using a cork?
So before corks, there were, I think it was hay in some rags, and then they would
Pine
just
tar.
wrap pine tar, and then you almost have to just break the ball. But again, it doesn't seal properly. They quickly realized the elastic properties of cork, except it was barely elastic. There was no surface treatment. So you would put the cork in, then you cannot remove it.
Right,
That was at the time, so it was either corkscrews that would just have a little funnel, and then you pull through that cork, or you just break the top of the bottle.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So can you briefly talk about the production, like you go out to the trees, and how are you getting the wood to do it, and how sustainable this is?
It's super sustainable because you do not cut the tree. So we harvest the bark. The lifestyle, the whole lifetime of a cork tree is about 350, 400 years. We plant a tree. It's going to take about 25 years to grow to maturation, where we can start harvesting that bark with the suberin. Carefully, because below this, there is the mother layer, which is a protective layer. So we do not want to damage that layer when we harvest. Otherwise, it might grow fungus and the tree will die. So 15 years in, first harvest. Now, this harvest is not usable to make closures.
Okay.
Then you wait another 15 years.
But you can use it to make other things.
We can
right?
make
Cork boards and
it's just not for
insulation,
closure.
not just for closure. We have a second harvest 15 years later. Same thing, not usable. So you're 25 in, 15. So it's the third harvest. So we're almost 50 years in, and we can make closures from that tree. And then every 10, 15 years, we are able to just reuse the same tree and that bark.
You thought vineyards had it bad. They had to wait till like 4 or 5 years just to get a usable crop. These guys have waited 50 years.
It's true.
So it's a lot about planting, it's a lot about sustainability, protecting the tree, protecting the environment. Cork tree is also protective barrier for the fire, against the fire.
Okay.
So, fun fact, because I'm a nerd and I love learning.
I love nerds.
So the species is Quercus suber, of the type, you asked about the type of the oak tree. And if anybody happens to be in Sacramento, so I live in California, but in Sacramento, they have this really cool park around the Capitol building, and all of the trees around the Capitol, are labeled, and they have a few Quercus suber or cork oak trees around the Capitol building.
That's cool.
In Sacramento, and they're labeled. So if anybody happens to be in Sacramento, go to the Capitol building and find the cork tree.
Sounds good. I like that. So so now we've harvested the cork. So then what's the next step?
So next step for DIAM, it's very different from the majority of the industry. The industry, what we used to, or been used to for a long time, it's punching corks through that.
Okay.
So you punch holes, you get that cork out of it. But as you can see, it's a natural product. So some of the woody parts are in here as well. So you'll find them again in the cork. Also, the tree is growing every year. You have different seasons. So you're going to have a rainy season, a hot season. So the tree grows larger or smaller every year. So you see that with those lines. I'll let you take pictures, but you can see those lines.
Okay, yeah.
Those are growing lines. And so they contribute to inconsistencies in the structure of the tree that you will find again in the cork. So those inconsistencies for us, they didn't work. We wanted to have something perfect, something that has no flow. So we started grinding corks. So we grind all the suberin, because here you can see you have a lot of loss. Once you punch those corks, you have all of this.
Right, yeah.
Not usable anymore, or you have to recycle it for something else.
Okay.
So here we can grind, and then we can filter. We can filter with different grind size. We can measure the elasticity of each batch. We can remove the dust, the woody parts, and rebuild a cork from this.
Okay.
The one problem that we saw 20 years ago, or before 20 years ago, it's that we all know about TCA,
Yes.
the cork taint. Cork taint is something that is completely random, found in trees. So when you punch in corks, you're going to have 5, 6, 7 good corks, and then one with TCA. The next 10 are fine, and then maybe 1 or 2. So it's just random. The problem, when you granulate, that little spot of TCA
Is everywhere.
that's everywhere. And that's what contributed a long time before DIAM to the bad image of microagglo, because now you find TCA in more agglomerated corks than you would find in punched corks.
Okay.
So when DIAM started, we were like, we need a clean cork, we need a consistent cork, and we also need to offer choices to winemakers. So that was the 3 pillars on which DIAM was built. And the cleaning process is what put DIAM on the map 20 years ago. Then the consistency, and today the choices we offer. You talked about OTR or IR, oxygen transfers. Today we're the only company that can offer different oxygen transfers for different winemaking purposes, for different clients, for different wines.
Right. So the old school would have been just a random, like these 2 corks may have 2 different OTRs, but you don't necessarily
know.
guarantee, you can't market it to me, sell it to me. Whereas yours, you can say this is going to be whatever that number is. Okay.
Correct. It's not, corks are not bad. Punch corks are not bad. They're just very inconsistent. It's a natural product from a natural elements from the nature. So we cannot control this. It's just some are going to be very good, some are going to be good, and unfortunately, some are going to be bad.
Okay.
Which is why, right? You said at the beginning, I love Screwcaps, right? And why is that? Is because so many people experience the inconsistencies that come from this beautiful, wonderful, sustainable product of cork, but there are inconsistencies. And so you'd open a bottle with a cork and you go with a punch cork or a natural cork, and you'd go, wow, this doesn't taste like I remember it. And so that's why, Screwcaps have a place because they are a wonderfully consistent product. And again, it comes back to the idea of what is a brand and what is a winery trying to accomplish. And our goal is to provide choices across Screwcaps. And as Kevin will talk about, choices across the DIAM range that we have as well.
Yeah. So TCA, so he says, is randomly in the trees. Can TCA also be introduced into during the production process? Okay, so that was okay, I'm one of those people, I know enough to be dangerous or stupid, or both. And I remember reading somewhere along the lines there was something about finding TCA in the base of trees, and it somehow gets up into it. But I knew that it was in the trees, but I also had heard that you can get it during the process. You trichloroanisole. Did I say it right?
You did. You got it. Good job. Gold stars.
TCA.
And tribromidazole. Yeah, the TBA. It's another one. For the most part, if this is going over your head, don't worry about it.
And is also 5.
Yeah, there's 5 of them. Last year, 2 years ago, I went to a seminar from a doctoral student from A&M who's actually here.
Cool.
And she talked about Screwcap and that a wine had TCA. But it wasn't from the screw cap. It was from an HVAC unit that was leaking onto a barrel. So
it can come
from anywhere.
Any source.
The pallets in the winery. So it lives.
Cardboard from your glass, from a barrel itself. Because again,
a barrel. Yeah,
an oak tree.
It's wood. Yeah, it's wood.
And so it's so random. It's volatile. It's volatile. So it's in the air as well. So you have to be careful.
But it's important to know it's not dangerous to a consumer, right?
No.
It just makes your wine smell either not like it should, funky, wet cardboard, muted. You don't get the beautiful fruit, but it's not dangerous, right?
Not at all.
So it's like a consumer drinks it. It's not like it will harm somebody. It just ruins their experience.
Yeah. Any flaw or fault you've ever heard me talk about over the years won't hurt you, won't get sick from it. It's just makes the wine unpleasant or not the same. So even a corked wine can just be muted. You may not get that wet dog or cardboard smell or taste. You may like be very familiar with the wine. You may go, hey, this bottle is not like the other bottle I just opened up. Things are more muted. And that could just be TCA or whatever the anisols are. But TCA is the one, and it's just kind of the catch-all that we use for that. Okay, so now you've ground everything up, and now you're going to make these corks. Now, I've heard this term technical cork. Is that what that is, or is that something completely different?
No, technical cork, very much. And on top of that, for DIAM, it's very appropriate. Cork being very traditional industry, been there for a long time, centuries, companies that existed for centuries. DIAM took the scientific way to make corks. So the term existed before, but for DIAM, it's really science-based. So technical corks, because the cleaning part, very important. It's extremely technical, and I'll talk about it. The way we make it, the manufacturing process, having microspheres or having beeswax to build the cork. And then the final part, which is managing oxygen transfers on a consistent way.
Okay.
So cleaning process.
Yeah.
Corks. Those corks, they're cleaned mostly with steam. And steam, because it penetrates, it's gaseous, so it penetrates the cork. The limit with steam, it only reduces the contamination level. So you have no contamination, no problem. Now you have a little bit of contamination, you reduce it by 60-70%. You might never smell it or taste it in a wine. But if the contamination is higher, let's say 6 nanogram, 10 nanogram, we're talking parts per trillion. It's nothing.
It doesn't take much, honestly.
Doesn't take much. Yeah. But if it's at 10, remove 60%, it's at 4. Human can smell it at 2 and below. So the wine is done. So it's a problem. The other limit, steam reaches temperatures of 240 Fahrenheit. At that temperature, you start toasting. And what happens when you toast?
Right?
Maillard reaction.
Yeah, good job.
Exactly. You start having aromas. You start having vanilla, baked bread, which you might want in a barrel.
Right, not in a cork.
You want this in a cork.
Yeah.
So that's the limit of steam. So what we did at DIAM in 2004, we built on a process that existed before. It's called CO2 supercritical. And it's a process that was used by the coffee maker Maxwell.
All right.
And they use this process to extract caffeine from coffee beans. So it's been around for a long time. Nothing new about it. Now it's part of the green chemistry. It's part to extract components without using any chemicals. And so we adapted this system to extract not only all the anisols, the 5 anisols, but we extract vanilla. We extract an octane triol, which is the mushroom taste molecule, so what you use to do mushroom sauce. But we extract actually 150 different molecules.
Oh, wow.
From just cork.
All right. Yeah.
So all those things we don't even know. We always talk about cork taint, but there are other things involved in a wine tasting off, smelling off. It's not always just the anisols.
Yeah.
So we clean this. The way we do it, to simplify, we bring CO2 into pipes. We have a big cork autoclave on one side, a CO2 tank on the other. It's a closed circuit. There's almost nothing that comes out. We compress that CO2 at about 100 bars of pressure. Then we heat that CO2 as well at about 50 degrees Celsius, which is 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So also far from the toasting temperature. At this moment, it becomes critical, it turns critical. So it becomes both a liquid and a gas.
All right.
It's something, it's something I've never heard at school, and that's how you work with DIAM, and that's some of the science behind. So now you have something that is penetrating the microgranules like a gas, and something that is cleaning and extracting like a liquid. So what we do after that CO2 penetrates all the core granulates.
And when Kevin says big autoclave, I mean, think big,
It's
like a
huge.
two-story, tall,
About 800 tons of cork.
Exactly. So by big, we're not talking like big, we're talking two-story big.
Yeah. I'm just amazed that someone figured out how to do this. I mean, like whatever they said, let's just throw some CO2 and heat it up, and it's going to become a liquid and gas at the same time. Like
It's impressive.
people that are probably way more smarter than me. I'm assuming way more smarter than them about gas.
Totally.
For sure.
Okay,
Totally.
not trying to judge,
not
but
doing
totally.
anything.
but I'm way more smarter
Totally.
than I am. But that is just so fascinating. So
what
we
happens,
do that.
we do that. Then the important phase is when that CO2 goes out, we need to decompress it. Why we decompress it? Because the CO2 turns into a gas again, still in the pipes, but we have a separator where we collect all the molecules we got. So all those molecules now are trapped. We separate them. We run the CO2 through a activated carbon filter just to make sure it's pure, clean, and it goes back in its tank until the next batch. And so this, unfortunately, you cannot smell it.
You don't want to smell
You
it,
don't
want
by
to.
the way.
For science.
For science.
For science and
again,
so you don't have
it's
to.
harmless, but this
Okay.
is what we get. It's called diamant extract because our process is called diamant.
Actually, well, I can smell the cork tape, but I thought it was gonna be maybe a little something. I thought it was gonna be way more intense.
So it will be more intense if we dilute it. So as soon as we
Really?
dilute it in wine or in water,
In water, so
the smell will be 10 times stronger. And that's how it works TCA. It just
Wow.
dilutes and becomes stronger. And that's why you don't even need a drop of that in the wine to just mess it up completely.
So there are some people that are just like any aroma are blind to it, or it takes a lot more than your normal threshold. If you are one of those people, you're great. I don't consider myself like a super, I don't know,
Smeller?
taste-
Super smeller?
super smeller, super taster. But I don't know of any normal wine flaw or fault that I can't detect. And it is amazing, though, not to go down a rabbit hole about TCA or the aerosols, is that there are people who are in the industry, and I've had their reps, winemakers, whoever, and I get cork taint when they're presenting a wine to me. And I will tell you, I don't want to sit there and just be like, yeah, it's great. And then like, no, I mean, it sucks. I'm not going to,
Right,
If
yeah.
your wine sucks, I'm not going to tell you it sucks. But if you have cork taint, I will tell you, whether you're the wine rep or the winemaker, I will tell you that, or I will say, hey, could you check it?
Yep.
Like, I had a master sommelier come to the place I worked, he was presenting his wine for a demo, and it was early in the day. And I went up to him. I was like, "Yeah, let me try it." And I smelled it. I was like, "It's got cork taint." And I was like, "Guy, have you tried it yet?" He goes, "No." I said, "We should give it a try. I think I have some TCA in it." He was like, "Oh yeah." So I opened another bottle, and like it's random. Just because one bottle in one case doesn't mean the case is bad.
No.
Now, if you get multiple bottles in a case, you may have a bad batch. And this is where somebody like DIAM, maybe we're jumping ahead.
Save the day.
Yeah, we might be jumping ahead, but at some point you guys have a guarantee. So now let's talk about. So you extracted all this stuff. Now you're getting to the point where you're going to create. We get these little boxes in here. Yes.
So now what we would do, we have a manufacturing process where we just mold every cork. So then we recreate
Individual
all those corks,
molds. So individual molds.
to recreate different corks. During the process, we also have a process where we use microspheres or beeswax emulsion. That is important because it prevents wine penetration. Because when you recreate a cork from microgranules, you recreate little holes. Those little holes that are exactly here, the same one that are in the original product, you recreate them. So we want to avoid this. So we have to fill those cracks, those holes. So we use microspheres or we use beeswax, beeswax emulsion. We obviously have a binder to get together. On our bio-based version, it's a plant-based binder. On any other agglomerated corks everywhere else in the world, it's a polyurethane binder. It's necessary. So yes, it's a little bit of plastic, but it's 3% of the entire cork. The rest is cork granulates. It's important to say, now we have Origin, which is completely bio-based, but this is critical to avoid wine penetration, because what happens? You get wine penetrating the cork, the elasticity drops instantly, and then you see it, for example, in sparkling. We've all opened bottles, and it's a flyer. It's just popping, and it's gone. And it still has a mushroom shape. It's wet. That's because the liquid got inside the cork, killed pretty much the elasticity of the cork, the rebound that we want. And now the cork, well, on a sparkling, it's going to go out. But on a still wine bottle, the cork will lose elasticity very quickly. And now you have oxygen penetrating between the glass and the cork, and oxidation is happening in a matter of weeks, maybe months. So it's very critical to have something consistent, and that consistency is achieved by making corks that are just from 1 to the next 50 million, they're all consistent.
So whether it's your corks or corks in general, and this is just something I've either heard or just assumed that there is there a liner on the outside of the cork? No. Okay. But so your corks, because of how they're made, this wouldn't be a problem. But something like this, they have to be cut a certain way so that the little tubes go vertical rather than horizontal.
You don't know.
Don't know?
You don't
Just
know?
because it could be anything?
So what's happening with the cork
Again,
industry?
I know too much to be dangerous. A little bit.
But they're good questions.
Yeah.
These are great
It's
questions.
a very good question, but you could buy the most expensive cork. $3 cork. It looks beautiful from outside. I encourage you to cut it and look how it looks inside. From outside, it might be perfect. Inside, it might be full of little holes, some woody parts. That will make that cork not so good. However, you spend a lot of money on it, but again, you do not know what you get. It's a lot of the price, the cost is based on visual. What we want to eliminate is that unknown, making corks very consistent, and so we don't have to protect it in another way. We just make it consistent, and that's all. Nobody has to fear any problem after that.
Our job, right? Our job as a supplier of closures, whether it be a screw cap or a cork, is to simply provide a winemaker with a product that's organoleptically neutral, right? Sensory is totally neutral. It's not our job to change their liquid. Give them something that's neutral that will every single time perform the same. So that's why for me, right, it's up to the winemakers to say, hey, am I a screw cap because this is what my consumer wants? Or am I a cork a DIAM cork because that's what my consumer wants. You've taken away the element of unknown and the element of, oof, I'm going to spend all this money and time and energy, and then I open a bottle at a restaurant and it doesn't taste the way I want it. So it's like DIAM has enabled us to cross this line from a cork perspective into total consistency. So that's why for me, it's so important that wineries and brand owners and brand ambassadors, they know what they're trying to achieve, because we'll give you a closure that will give you cleanliness and a consistency and choice. And it's up to you to figure out, do you want your wine to age for 30 years? We have a cork for that. Do you have a wine that's maybe a little faster consuming, that you want less oxygen to come in? Well, we have a screw cap for that. So there's tons of different options out there, but we're not going to change your wine.
Yeah.
We're going to give you a closure, and it's up to you to determine what you want.
Yeah, to add to this, try to think about anything in the food industry that you would buy or consume if it didn't taste right. Did you buy a yogurt? If among the 6, the label might give it a bitter taste. Probably not. The company will not even sell it.
Yeah.
But for the wine industry, for some reason, we accepted the fact that the work of a winemaker, the money, the effort, the craft can be damaged or not tasted at its best just because of a closure. So for DIAM, it was no, we cannot allow that. So that's where we go. That's what we did, and that's where we're going.
Yeah. So we talked about the OTR there. So for the screw caps, I see there's these numbers here. I'm just going to kind of hold this up. So what are these numbers? Are they the OTR numbers, or are they just like a model number, so to speak?
No. So the numbers, they are what we can refer how the longevity of the wine you want to use this cork for. More technically, it's actually a guarantee of elasticity over time. Like I said, we make corks very consistent. They are elastic, but they lose elasticity over time. Like any materials, they lose elasticity. But we're able to measure this. So now we're able to make a cork. We have a guarantee of elasticity for 2 years, DIAM 2. 3 years, DIAM 3, all the way to DIAM 30.
And it surely doesn't mean you get to 24 months and one day and your cork disintegrates. It's just simply we guarantee the pressure in the neck of the bottle where the cork pushes against the neck of the bottle to retain that.
We guarantee that seal, those oxygen transfer, we're able also to provide. They guaranteed for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30. But keep in mind that those measurements, they're lab measurements, room temperature.
Yes.
So 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Do you keep your wine at 68 degrees Fahrenheit?
No, it's whatever my house is at. Which, my actual wine cellar busted over during COVID. So, and it was too expensive to fix or replace. So, I just have a really fancy wine rack that doesn't have a lot of bottles in it right now, but can hold like 150 bottles. There's a reason why we store wine at a certain temperature and humidity, and all that. Can you talk about? All right, so there's lots of stuff about corks that now that I have somebody who can talk to me about it. Lots of things that can probably dispel certain myths and rumors I might know. It's like liners and like orientation of whatever. So humidity, we don't want the cork to dry out, right? And I remember that if you've never heard of Levi Dalton, you should know who he is. He has amazing stuff. I'll drink to that. Unfortunately, I don't really listen to his podcast anymore just because I don't have enough drive time, and I don't listen to podcasts at all at home. I'll fall asleep. So while I'm driving,
great.
Yeah,
I love his podcast.
So I remember that somebody from DIAM, I swear, I don't know if it was you.
No, it wasn't me. It was our CEO today.
Okay,
the group CEO, even from Oneo, who is at the very beginning of the critical CO2 and the treatment and all the DIAM story.
So I remember that he was on there. I remember listening to it, and I might have misheard, or I may have attributed this to a different podcast or something else. But there was something about the tradition of laying down wine to keep the cork moist.
Yep.
But now you're talking about like, well, if the wine penetrates too far in the cork, we lose that elasticity. So my memory was like, we don't need to do that because, and I've heard other since then that we have enough humidity in the headspace. So laying down the cork is really just an old tradition that isn't necessary.
So it's true.
Is it a yes or a no or both? Or
No, so it depends.
Yeah, depends. See, there you go.
Yes, with
Corks like that.
punch corks because they will dry out. So you need to keep them humid a little bit. But because also you're not sure they're completely perfect, at some point, wine might penetrate and kill that elasticity. So those corks need to always have a little bit of wine touching them so they do not dry out. Because the two factors that will reduce faster the elasticity, it's liquid and it's temperature. If they dry, they lose elasticity. If they get too wet, they lose elasticity. DIAM, because we have that consistency, because we prevent the liquid penetration, now they don't have to be laying down. They can be kept up, bottoms up, whatever you want. You can examine them the way you want. It's not a problem. Second thing, it's a dry cork. Has no humidity in it, so it will not dry. It will just stay as it is for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, knowing that if you store your wine in cellar condition, let's say 58 degrees Fahrenheit, those numbers, they double. So now you have a DM5, you can keep it 10 years. No problem.
So you kind of built in like a fail-safe because most people don't store their wines.
No.
And let's be honest, these 2, 3, maybe even the 5, we don't necessarily need to, especially the 2 and 3, we don't need to store them at cellar temperature. Most of these wines are probably going to be consumed within 4 hours of purchase anyway. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters for certain, but it doesn't matter as far as like, okay, we want to insure you. I mean, it matters. You want to insure it 2 and 3 years, but these are going to be more of your pop and pour wines. But it's like Scotty. Like I need 2 days to fix it, and he fixes in five hours. So kind of the opposite, right?
It's tailored to the wine. So it's not because it's a DM2, but it's the cheap cork, the least expensive cork. They all made the same guarantees, same treatment.
Yeah.
It's just for different wines. For wines that will be drunk, consumed within a few hours. But they as well made as a DM30 that is something that's meant for 60 plus years. And like you said, it's different uses for winemakers. Some winemakers might need 2 years, like a DM2, plenty, but they might ship to China or back to Europe. We don't know how that container is shipping. It's on the top of the boat.
Yeah, it could be on the top, it could be in the hold.
So they might go with a DM5 to have a guarantee of elasticity higher than they need, which will protect the wine during the transport, which will protect the wine wherever it's sold, and wherever it's going to be consumed. And nowadays they have, again, that fail-safe, which is a great way to put it. Again, versatile. That's what DIAM is, and that's the choice part, the last part. It's all these options that the cork industry never had. It was just, I'm telling you this, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's not tainting the wine, and it's keeping oxygen out for enough time until I drink it.
But similar to what you were asking about, right, OTRs and the liners, because DIAM is a technical company based on science, right? So like Kevin was saying, D2, DIAM3, DIAM5, and you asked about OTRs, we know with precision the OTR and OIR, right, the initial oxygen release of every cork, every time, repeatable, over and over, just like we know with the liner of a screw cap, the repeatable, consistent, every time performance. So again, it goes back to you're a winemaker, you're a wine owner, you know what your consumers are looking for, but we can give you the guarantee of no volatile compounds, no off aromas, and then we can give you a liner and a cork with an OTR that you can say, hey, I've got a Bordeaux style varietal that maybe needs a little more oxygen than a Burgundy style varietal that we want to keep tighter and with less oxygen. So you have those choices, and you have those choices on a screw cap as well.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about cork, and I haven't forgotten about the screw caps. Okay. And now we're going to talk about screw cap for a second here. So, and I don't know how much your company is involved in this type of stuff, but I know of There have been wineries in well, mainly Bordeaux. I'll just say there's been at least one first growth that did some testing with Screwcaps. So we talk so much about the ageability with cork, but there's nothing technically that would prevent a Screwcap from maybe allowing a wine to age 5, 10 years or even longer if it was designed that way, correct?
Yeah, so I would say we put it back to the winemakers to do trials, right? Whether it's a screw cap or a cork, it is up to a winery to close a bottle of wine with whatever closure they want and test it and trial it. And then when you see the results, you can compare, do I like the way in which this closure versus that closure, whether it be a screw cap with a liner with a higher amount of oxygen or a liner with less amount of oxygen, and they determine, quite frankly, what performed the best for them. So from a trial standpoint, we always tell winemakers, do your work, and you guys can determine based on your proof what works best for you.
Yeah, and I don't remember which first growth Bordeaux it was, but they did a trial, and I forgot how many years. It wasn't like a 1 year thing. And I think they just ultimately decided they'd rather stay with cork. I think it was more about the image, honestly. I mean, you're opening up a $1,000 bottle of wine. To them, it's like, well, we want a cork. Their customers want the cork, right? They don't want the screw cap. With that said, Australia, New Zealand are almost 100%, almost. New Zealand's like 97% screw cap, and like Australia is a little bit less. And there are wines that are in the at least a couple $100 that are screw cap from Australia, and these are iconic wines.
Screw caps are great.
Yeah.
Right? Screw caps are great. I mean, it's consistent. It allows convenience, right? It makes the process for consumers who maybe aren't used to wine, it's more familiar to them, like opening a bottle of beer, right? So again, it is a tool in the toolbox, and it really just comes down to what experience are you looking for? And yeah, Australia, New Zealand, I mean, they have a culture that's accepted it, that has embraced, right? The twisty.
Absolutely.
I believe the Australians and the New Zealand, they call them twisties. I think they call them twisties.
Hey, I'm sure they do.
But they've been hurt enough.
They were. So,
right.
I mean, way back in the day, they got the worst of the corks. So they got the worst quality corks, and they were tired of it. And Yearing, whatever, they finally were like, we're done. And in like the 1950s, they went to a French company that company eventually became what we call a certain brand of screw cap. But they pioneered that. The irony was, and I mentioned this in one of my Australia things, is that they abandoned the screw cap in the late 90s as everybody else was hopping onto it because there was something, I forgot why. Maybe it wasn't giving them what they wanted, or maybe I think it was a perception thing. I don't think it had broken through yet that you still have high quality wine with the screw cap. And then all of a sudden, like around the time they said, hey, we're done with it, everybody else started doing it, and then they're back to doing it. But just because it's a screw cap doesn't mean it's cheap. It might be an inexpensive wine, but also could be an expensive wine. I also have seen it in the United States and other parts where I've seen screw caps with more premium wines. We're talking, in that $50 range and $20, $30, $40, $50. When I deal with people who are in the retail side, there are some people that they want screw cap. Why? Because they might be traveling. They may not be staying somewhere where they have a corkscrew. I can sell them a corkscrew. We also have people who are just they're uncomfortable you opening a wine with a corkscrew, especially the, quote, waiter's friend. You have the wing type, and then people want the ones that you inject gas. I don't sell those. There's nothing wrong with them. I just don't sell them. The electric ones, the rabbits, and all those types of things. And people are just uncomfortable with it. I mean, there's even people in the service industry. I can't tell you how many times I go to a restaurant and the waiter never really ever opened a bottle of wine, and they're struggling. I'm like, come here, I'll help you. And I try to be very nice about it, not condescending at all. I was like, hey, I'm in the industry. Let me show you how to do it. I don't know what you're getting, just trying to help you.
You're busy, no problem.
I'm trying to help you. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't take this the wrong way, whatever, and show them the proper way to open a bottle of wine. Yeah. I've also seen wine reps who can't open a bottle of wine to save their life. And I'm like, how did you get this job? So screw caps help eliminate things like that, help eliminate that fear of breaking the cork. So now that I've said breaking the cork, not that your corks break, breaking the cork doesn't mean a wine is corked. Corked wine is TCA or the aerosols. The breakage of a cork is not that, and you can still get the rest. I kind of specialized in being able to get the rest. It happened the other day. One of the refs broke a cork. He was going to taste this on some wine, and it was like maybe like this much. I was like, hold on, I got this. And I just like did it really. I got my wine key out, and I just pulled it out perfect. And she looked at me and was like, I don't guarantee I can do it every time, but yeah. Now, pro tip, if you want to spend I think it's like $160 now, on a Durand. Oh, yeah. So it's the corkscrew and the osso or the prong. If you break a cork, they're perfect for that.
They are.
And I love them. Now, not your corks, but I can also say that in other corks, just in general, if I don't know whose enclosure it is or closure, when I'm at 10 years or older, at the restaurant side, I would just get my Durand anyway. But I've also had at home, I'm like, I'm just gonna open it with my corkscrew, and comes out just fine. Yeah. And then sometimes the cork breaks, and I'm like, I got this. So so there's lots of reasons, like I said, for Screwcap, because you have consumer confidence in what they can open, or they're traveling, they don't have a corkscrew, or they're going somewhere, like they're going out and they're having a picnic or whatever, and they don't want to bring all the
opening, closing, closing. Super
boom is So this is again, both of these have their purposes and advantages. Advantages. I don't say there's really no disadvantages to me, especially for your stuff.
Right.
There's no disadvantages. None. There's just differences. And your goals and what you're looking for.
And look, we're all in this industry right now that we're trying so hard to get people to choose wine, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And I, at this point, I just want consumers who maybe wouldn't normally pick wine to give it a try and bring in new tasters, drinkers, consumers into the industry. And so if that means they want to experience, right, the traditional of the cork and support that because it feels cool when you you get the little last bit of that sound, sound come out, it feels good. Or if they go, man, I've opened, a bottle of soda my whole life, and so I know how to twist the cap. Just pick whatever feels good to you. Yeah. And our job is to never provide a closure that will change the liquid drinking experience for them. That's it.
Absolutely. So just realize that a screw cap doesn't indicate anything about the wine.
No.
Okay. Yes, a lot of inexpensive wines use screw caps, but a lot of very expensive wines use synthetic corks that really aren't that great, or corks like this, bad corks, or they could be using one of these. I mean, they want higher quality cork. They could be an expensive wine. And both of these have their costs involved with it, and that's part of why a wine costs what it costs. So, a $12 bottle of wine isn't going to be using a $3 cork. I'm not saying these are all $3, but they're not going to use a $3 cork. They're going to use a cork that's like 75 cents or $1, whatever. But also the label is going to be a certain amount. The foil is going to be a certain amount. The glass is going to be a certain amount. Like, you guys sell, you deal with the glass. So you have different options with how that glass is that cost of that. So anywhere from, I can't remember all the pricing anymore, but these are all part of what makes a wine what it is. And of course, you buy in bulk, you get discounts and all that. But
it's a question of perception. Today, that's what it is. In Australia, New Zealand, the perception is accepted that it's not a question of high-end and just not high-end wines. Cork, same thing. Micro aglo, for so long, they were considered as a cheap closure. Today, we put it at the highest level. We cork, today, most of the white wine Burgundy high-end are under DIAM. A lot of the Pinots too. Bordeaux is switching a lot. We have the American market, California, Napa. A lot of people are adopting DIAM because of that. And people have less in mind the perception of their consumers, because people open a bottle of wine, the last thing they look at, it's a cork. Yeah. They want the wine to taste good, as the winemakers want the wine to taste the way they made it, the purpose they intend in the wine, save that purpose, and give it to people.
So, one probably last question. With the cork, let's just say, I'm not necessarily as a consumer, but let's say someone opens a bottle and they're actually is an anisole and there actually is TCA. What do you guys do as far as that's concerned, say, with the winery? Is there something, a way to, first test that and verify that? And is there a way to rectify whatever that might be?
So there is a protocol because it's literally based on the wine being perfect, no more TCA. I think in the span of 20 years, it might happen a couple times. What we do, we take the cork, cut it in 3 pieces, and we test each part. The part that is outside, the middle part, and the part in contact with the wine. Every time, we found that the part in contact with the wine had a TCA. Then we went back to the winery, and then we found out that one time it was the whole tank, and one time it was the batch. It was coming from the winery. Then solving that problem when it's in bottle, it's pretty much impossible. So it's just call back everything, or hope some people are not tasting it.
Yeah.
But at least the winery knows it's not the cork, and they will know, oh, okay, it comes from that tank, from maybe that barrel, from maybe that pallet that was right there, and for some reason it hopped into that barrel, and now it messed up my wine. But at least they know where it's coming from. Maybe it's a whole share, the whole cellar that has a problem.
Right.
The goal for us, we never blame anyone. We're always questioning ourselves because, again, we're science-based. We might not be right all the time, but on something like that, we'll definitely do the test and see where it comes from.
Okay. And then as far as the construction of the corks, again, I might be confusing manufacturers of corks. Is there 2 ends in the middle, or is it all one?
That's one piece.
All one piece.
That's
okay.
one piece. So yeah, you have the corks that have 2 pieces.
Twin tops, bidis. Yeah.
Okay.
1+1.
So 1+1. But
see, I've heard all these terms, but I can't remember who does what and all that kind of stuff.
And today, especially DIAM being the leader, competition never believed in what we were doing 20 years ago. Now they're all coming after us. They see the progress, they see what we do. Everybody's copying us. But today, in cleaning, there are systems that are similar, but far from being as efficient. And on the whole spectrum of DIAM 3, DIAM 5, DIAM 10, no one has matched that yet. And the offering of different oxygen transfer for different types of wine, for different regions, different type of winemaking.
Yeah.
No one has come close. I mean, we're 20 years ahead of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Our research department is about 20 people. One is based on naturality, which is anything bio-based. One is based on aesthetic, because also we want them to look good, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And then one is based on oxygen transfers. So also extending the oxygen transfers, extending the options, giving winemakers, again, more tools to play with. The cork for us it's a tool, it's an analogical tool, like just a barrel, like just yeast. It's one more addition at the end that allows them to fine tune, to lead the wine somewhere.
Yeah. Also, just one of the things we didn't talk about. One of the things about corks, so you see, we have the things on here. One of the things about why you present a cork to the customer is this is meant to be kind of like a validation that they got what they ordered, right? Besides the label, the assumption is that if you're going to fake a wine, you just fake the label, and then maybe you have a blank cork. Well, if it's been branded properly, this is why you present the cork. You're looking to make sure it matches. But also just kind of looking at it, you have Deloach, Artisan. Who's this? La Crema, right? You have a wide range of wineries here.
Yeah, that's
Gergich. I mean, Mike Gergich. I wish I had a chance to meet him. Passed away last year. Silverado, they make some great wines. I'm not saying these guys don't make those. I'll just say this: La Crema. They have this
darn good wine.
They make this Monterey Pinot Noirs, depending on where you buy it, $12 to $15.
Totally.
It slaps, as the kids say. I don't know. It's fantastic. And I'm not. And for me to praise Pinot Noirs, first of all, it's actually I don't unless it's good. Robert Craig, Ramey,
David Ramey.
Schaefer, TD9 is a badass wine. I use back of house language, sorry. Chateau Magdalena, classic. So, I mean, this is a wide range of wines at various price points. So, like you said, it's not necessarily the most expensive wine is going to be, using these, you can have things that are more value based. And so it's a matter of, it's across the board.
Yes.
And the same thing for on the screw cap.
Yep.
You have a wide range, especially when you're talking about Southern Hemisphere or Australia, New Zealand. But again, other parts of the world are starting to catch on that if cork, for whatever reason, is not for you, that you have an option with screw caps.
Yeah, and just here, these are just random ones we pulled out of our sample box, but Winty, fantastic winery, Livermore Valley, San Antonio Winery, an incredible winery down in LA with high-end premium as well as value-based.
They were like number one winery by enthusiasts. Somebody.
Yes.
About 3 or 4 years
Yes,
ago. No, like 6 years ago.
They're incredible.
Because I was working at the private club and they came by.
They're incredible. Clos du Bois.
Yeah.
Just again, stock cap
Yeah.
or stop screw cap, but like a wide range of screw caps as well. Really, just depending upon customers' needs.
Absolutely. Is there? We're getting kind of long, but as long as I make James Tidwell in 16 minutes. Is there anything else that we did not talk about that you want to?
One thing I would like to approach, it's the sustainability.
Yes.
Today, it's everybody talks about it. A lot of industries are into it. DIAM has been tracking their carbon footprint since 2007. We were very big into it, but our clients today are also working with this. And what's the least sustainable? Least sustainable bottle of wine, the one you can drink.
The one you can't drink?
You cannot drink because it's corked.
Yeah.
It's been oxidized or it's reduced for whatever reason. That bottle, it's about 1,300 grams of CO2 when you talk about the glass, the winemaking, the label, the cork, everything.
Maybe you had a poor screw cap application and it's a lifter.
If you touch that bottle,
whatever you can't drink, it's the worst.
Poor winemaking.
Anything.
It has nothing to do with the closure. Poor winemaking, bad fruit, whatever it is.
Whatever it is. So all that carbon footprint is added if you do not drink the bottle. So all the effort of the winemakers. And so for us, it's important to protect the wine so it doesn't happen. But also at our level, we do a lot of effort. So for example, in Spain, we're building a whole solar farm. And that solar farm will be able to bring all the necessary energy to the plant. So we're making efforts on our part. We're working our distributors, all our partners to really reduce carbon emission on all levels. So that's, I think today for us, it's the game because we have that dialed on. It's been 20 years. We're doing a good job, but the next level is really the sustainability part.
Cool. Anything else on your end?
Yeah, it's really just for me, I want people to enjoy a great glass of wine.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's under a screw cap or a cork. I want people to enjoy the wine that they drink. And I want winemakers to know that we call it like the last enological act they make, right? They've made the wine, they're doing this, they're doing bottling. The last thing they do is the closure. And so we don't want to be something they think about or talk about, whether it's a screw cap or a cork. We want them to close that bottle and send it off into the world for all of your viewers, whether it's a restaurant or a grocery store. We want people to get it and go, wow, that was a good bottle. And we don't ever want to be a topic of conversation.
And just be kind of transparent.
That's it.
Yeah, just it's the background.
We don't want to be talked about. Like, we don't want them to talk about the screw cap or a cork unless they love the design. But open the bottle, drink it. That's what we want.
Cool.
Enjoy.
All right. Well, I appreciate both of you.
Thank you very much.
Spending some time with me. I got to learn a lot about stuff. It really helps me just in my own studies and understanding things. Folks, just as always, make sure you hit like, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and we will see everyone again. We'll see everyone again next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.